Welcome, everyone, to the Hope Report, your light in the darkness, brought to you by the Lindell Recovery Network. I am Jason Perry.
And I'm Melissa Huray.
And we're excited to have you guys. This is another week. I have successfully made my move to Tennessee, and I'm in the new studio. I won't even tell you where it is, but it's obviously in this really nice.
It's looking really nice.
Good. Yeah, this really nice house that behind me here. But I'm excited for this week. This week, guys, starting Wednesday, we're going to start taking phone calls. I'll put out that number on Wednesday, but we'll be able to take calls from you guys for any questions or any commentary or to hear your testimony, which is always great. And that'll start on Wednesday and then again on Friday. So
it'll be awesome. So excited for it.
So yeah, same here. So how was your weekend?
Hey, it was great. Like I was saying before we went live, or we clicked that record button. It was 87 here on Saturday. So up here in Minnesota, southern Minnesota. Like I told you, we're not up by the Canadian border, but still Minnesota. We hit 87. It wasn't a record, but it was pretty hot. And I went to a grad party for a sweet girl from church who graduated from North Central University in the Twin Cities here. And it was fun. Had a great time and mingled with some church folks. Did some yard work yesterday, planted some flowers. How about you?
I unpacked and unpacked.
And unpacked some more. It's in layers, right?
Yeah. There's not right now, if you were to walk through a tour of the house, everything's blown, like things are blown up everywhere, but things are starting to settle into pockets and holes and drawers and closets and stuff. So we're slowly getting there.
You're getting there.
Well, we really just got our stuff on Friday, right? And we offloaded it off the truck on Friday. And that Friday at 5, that's when the truckers were emptied. And now we've been unpacking Saturday and Sunday while trying to enjoy our new place. And I went hiking for 2 hours the other day and never left my property. That's awesome.
I love the picture you sent of your property. It looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it really is great. And the great thing is this morning, I know you're a big exercise buff. I have one of my garages is a gym. I got that all set up. That was my top priority on Saturday. So I got it all set up, and I've got 2 friends here that I work out with now at 7 a.m. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So we come in here, we work out, and there was I think it was a pretty big shock for them because I'm putting them through some powerlifting, MMA, Navy SEAL training type stuff with some boxing and stuff mixed in. And it's a lot of fun, and I'm hoping to melt myself here. I've kind of got deconditioned with how busy I've been with everything over the past 6 months. So really hoping to take my life back there. And if I could, I want to talk a little bit about so a little bit of testimony on my behalf here. Lauren, my wife, is one of the best students I've ever seen. She's got this ability to learn something. And the next time she encounters a situation that she was trained on, she does not default back to her instinct. She defaults to what she was taught. With myself, I don't know if it's my dyslexia. I don't know if I've got too much brain damage or I've been hit in the face too many times or blown up too many times. But it takes me a little bit to do that, to be able to take that, process that, recognize it, and take corrective action. So here I am, been trusting the Lord. Lord's been coming through for me. And, I had a big test coming up where our closing got pushed, our moving. We had these 2 tractor trailers. They couldn't fit in our driveway. And, it's all first world problems. It's nothing like life or death. But here I am. I've already moved, right? We're already in the house. And the people who are buying our house, they use, a credit union. I won't say who, but they weren't prepared to close when they were supposed to be prepared to close. So it pushed everything a week. And now we're already in the house, and we were supposed to be in the house for a couple of days. Now we're in for like 10 days. And luckily the people we're buying from are good people, and they didn't make an issue out of it. It was all working. But here we are, the stress monster starts going up, right? That's going on. I'm on the phone losing my mind with ABF Freight, who was, UPAC is who moved it with us. And they're telling me they can't fit these tractor trailers in a 20-foot driveway. And I'm like, I just came from a 10-foot driveway on a smaller road. And you're telling me, and like, it's totally irrational what you're saying. Like, yeah. I am not crazy. I'm telling you it'll fit. I'm out there with a video showing them. They said they can't do it. Well, finally, I networked with enough people here that I found a former employee to come down and look at my driveway. Right. He came down, he looked at it, he's like, this is a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10 of difficulty. Oh. So he called his old boss, told his old boss, and I called his old boss. I'm like, just try. Just try. Just come down and try. If you can't, then you can't. Right. Because now what was going to have to happen is I was going to have to hire movers, get a U-Haul truck, unload the trailers into the U-Haul truck, then drive it here. And it just would have been a disaster. So long story short, and he ends up coming here and the driver's like, this is one of the easiest deliveries I've ever made. He put 2 of them side by side. So not only could one fit, but both fit. So anyways, my motto of this story is I found myself becoming a stress monster again and trying to solve this myself. And instead, I caught myself eventually as I'm starting to become angry Jason. And I'm like, wait, I know I recognize this. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give it to the Lord. This is a test that I've been failing. And I gave it to him within 24 hours. Everything was settled.
Wow. So were you holding on to it and struggling to figure it out in your own power?
Yeah, basically I was like, I got to figure this out. I'm going to smash through this as much as I can and make it work and whatever, and worrying about things that I couldn't control.
Yeah.
And like, well, that's the definition of insanity. You can't worry about things you can't control. You can only worry about what you can control. And so that's what I did. And I left the rest up to God. And of course he came through in a big way. And now my house, the trucks are unloaded. They're out of my driveway as of this morning. And, and the set's up and we're looking. Yeah.
That's a great lesson. I never would have known you were struggling with it that much, because when I talked to you briefly over the weekend, you were like, oh, this is annoying. This is frustrating, but I didn't sense you were going back into your old ways, or, about the anger monster was nipping.
Yeah. Well, it was just, I'm able to compartmentalize pretty well. And, so as things heap on me, instead of things like, washing over me or going, in and out, they just start stacking and stacking and stacking. So I was able to, before I hit that critical mass and lost my temper or was mean to someone or anything like that, or said something stupid or anything like that, which, I don't really do often that way. I may say something I think is funny that isn't very funny or something like that. But anyways, it was just a really good lesson again to trust in the Lord. And the thing is I got so busy I wasn't spending time with him. Right. So I fell out of my morning routine, which is get up and get right in the Bible right away, because I had too much to do and I was tired and this and that. And, all these other excuses. And what I cut out first, I cut out God, which is the last thing you should cut out. So.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that many, many times, even recently too, just where I overslept or I'm tired and I notice how much it impacts my day. Getting up and getting in the Bible and it just changes everything for my day. I have to prioritize that. And of course, life will happen now and then, but happen a lot. But I was just telling you about the thing about my middle child, just some normal stuff, preteen stuff, getting frustrated about her not doing things I asked her to do, and then blowing up in little arguments. And I had dropped her off at school this morning, and I was praying, and I was thinking, I was just really feeling down about it and praying why, I feel like God's not doing anything. And I do that commonly. I will do that. I will not see something instantly. So I'll assume he didn't hear me, or he's ignoring me, or he's not responding. And I just kind of left it alone. And then when I got home, I looked at my phone and I had a text from this beautiful young lady at church. She's about 23, and she's kind of taken a liking to my daughter, like how we always talk about discipleship and mentorship. And she's just kind of gravitated to my daughter, like, oh, I just want to love her and hug her. And she said, hey, Melissa, do you need anything specifically for prayer today? I'm just kind of sensing that, maybe something's going on with you. And I'm like, wow, God, and I
That's
went in my
great.
closet and I just thanked him. I'm like, thank you. You're so faithful. You do hear me. Even when I'm whining and wrestling, you hear me and you're like, hey, I'm on it. I'm on it. Just give me a second.
So this morning I've been working my way through Kings and Chronicles in the Bible in the Old Testament, and I'm in the Jehoshaphat era there.
Yeah.
And one of the things is when God comes through, it's so amazing. When Jehoshaphat, comes in and convinces all of Israel to turn back to the Lord and, and to give up their, stop worshiping Baal and all these other things. And it was just so amazing on how, here they are and they're surrounded by all these enemies and they're going to be invaded by the equivalent of like Germany, Russia, China, and one other one. And what happened was they all turned away. They all fasted. They all prayed. God came through. And what did he end up doing? He made them all the enemies turn on each other. So here they were coming to get Israel. And instead, one ambushed the other. And then they all ended up destroying each other. And he's like, you're not even going to have to fight. Just go down there and watch because you've turned back to me.
Yeah.
And just amazing, and then I stumbled across some troubling texts where, God was in his heavenly court and one of the angels said to him, hey, they were trying to provoke one of the king into action. He said, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to put the spirit of lies on all their prophets to make them do this. And I'm like, wait, what the heck is this? And it was just some challenging texts. And I haven't had a chance to roll my sleeves up and dive into my study Bibles and look at, some of the original translations to see if I can understand that. And again, I'm terrible with names. The fact that I can remember Jehoshaphat is only because
I'm impressed about that. I just finished reading 2 Chronicles yesterday, which is funny that we were both in there. And I know I was zoning out on all of the different kings as it goes back and forth with did what was evil, did what was good, did what was evil, and back and forth and back and forth. So kudos to you.
Well, it just was, the underlying thing is God is faithful. So no matter how far down you are the path, if you, repent for your sins and you turn back to his face and you pursue him, he will come through for you. And that's what I really want everyone to get out of that story and out of mine. Again, I didn't drift far this time. I didn't, whatever, but it was just a minor thing, but it's that way for major things too. And we've talked about that before in my testimony and in your testimony, that if you just turn back to him and just start living faithfully, God will be there for you. So, yeah,
it's definitely the recurring theme in the book of Judges and then Chronicles, how they kept doing what was evil. And he just, he's like, I want you to come back to me. I want to have a relationship with you. I'm here waiting for you. Well, an encouraging message.
And the thing is I judge Israel so harshly because they're so, stiff-necked and bullheaded, and they're constantly having to relearn the same lessons over. And then I'm like, what a hypocrite. I'm still doing the same thing, every time I'm forgetting the same thing. So, and I just think about it. If you think about, the cycle, a prophet would be there, they'd be fine. The prophet would die, a generation would go by, and then they'd go right back to being knuckleheads, right? I mean, that's typically the pattern that would happen. Well, here we are, 70 years after the greatest generation, right? And look at where we're at. We're a complete mess as a country. There are champions of the faith, which I'm so excited to be interviewing Ken Graves next week. That is going to be amazing. But, here we are, we're seeing it right before our eyes. The things that are said on TV today, the things that we accept, like, 22 genders and, all these other things now would have been unthinkable 20 years ago. Unthinkable 22 years ago or 20 years ago or so. So now just think, you go back 50 or 70 years and, it's easy to see how we lose it, how we take God, the Supreme Court took God out of government, which was a big mistake, and got out of the schools and got out of the courts. And now we're left with this wreckage of a divided nation that is continuing to drift further apart until we either divorce or something terrible happens, in my opinion.
Yeah, society just deteriorates with lack of, not having God in his rightful place. we're in a pretty scary time right now where that's concerned. Luckily, we as Christians have the hope of the Lord, but I just feel terrible for people who don't have that and are going, living in fear and bound up in their circumstances here on this earth. That'd be just a terrible place to be.
So is there any news stories that jumped out at you that you want to talk about, or should I roll into break every chain?
Well, I just wanted to mention briefly, I heard Mike Lindell on War Room Pandemic with Steve Bannon this morning, and he was talking about some different things. But one of the things he mentioned is that he's going to have a Frank relaunch event in Mitchell, South Dakota so it's a week from today. It's May 10th.
Great.
So yeah, and everyone that goes they'll get a free copy of Mike's book, and they get a DVD. The event, it's at the Corn Palace. If you've ever been out to Mitchell, or if you live where I live, you always take the trip out to the Black Hills, and I'm sure lots of other people do that as well. But I'm about 4-ish hours from Mitchell, so I'm thinking, am I going to drive there? I don't know. But the Corn Palace is a cool venue, and the outside is made out of corn, and I think Mike chose this because South Dakota is very friendly. Kristi Noem, the wonderful governor over there, said, hey, come on, have your event here. We'd love to have you. So he's hoping for a big turnout there, and just to rally everybody around Frank and free speech and getting people excited about taking back our First Amendment rights.
Yeah. And the great news is that they seem to be really fixing a lot of the problems with Frank. Yeah. And, buttoning up the unprecedented level of attacks against it. And, I can't wait to see him standing there tall and proud for the relaunch. And, I'm just rooting for him and praying for him that this comes through and is the next big thing so we can get off these other platforms. Amen.
I know, I'm excited. It's, like you said, there's been a few hiccups and bumps, but it's going to get out. It's going to eventually work through all of that. Well, something else I just want to briefly say about Mike, sure. And I'm not going to get into a thing about contentious topics that could hurt our newly blossoming podcast. But Mike was talking about a certain push for people to, I know I feel like I'm on that show, the $25,000 pyramid, where you're supposed to not say the word, but there's, they coach you and okay. So Mike was talking about the push to have people receive a certain treatment in order to avoid a certain virus. And this is Mike's quote that I wrote down because I loved it so much. He said, if it doesn't make sense, then I don't believe in it. And I mean, that's one of the things I love about Mike, is that he talks and he speaks in terms anyone can understand. And that's one of the reasons why he hasn't gotten behind it. He doesn't feel that the science has proven it, that it's been consistent, that it's shown us over a period of time that we can trust it. And there's just so many unknowns and things up in the air that he says, it doesn't make sense to me why I would want to do that. So it's just kind of a common sense approach. I really love that it just stood out to me.
Yeah, well, he's a brilliant marketer. So if you're brilliant in marketing, you're great at communication. Yeah. And I feel like he is, really, really convincing or is able to communicate in very clear and concise ways when he puts some thought into it, and sometimes they'll just throw these truth bombs out there and you're like, wow, that's amazing, So again, I couldn't agree with you more. I agree that I think that the current, challenges that we're dealing with, which, we won't say for censoring issues, is there was by design to get rid of the president. And now we're doing every hokey thing we possibly can to undo what we did to achieve that result, in my opinion, So that's what I think. I think this was, we were all looking at a guaranteed Trump reelection. And, and again, a lot of people believe that did happen. And, hopefully in Arizona, we're going to see something here with them counting, and, who knows where we're going to go from there. But I'm pretty excited about what's going on there. I would love to see the truth come out. I'm just such a skeptic now. I'm such a skeptic. I've had my heart ripped out so many times with so many promises from Sidney Powell, Lynn Wood, even Steve Bannon. I mean, there are countless times I was watching the War Room every minute of the day for so long, and just so many things. I'm like, all right, this is it, and nothing. And this is it. After 30 of those, I'm like, you know what?
I'm checking out.
Yeah. It was just, hey, I'm going to believe it when I see somebody serious take this up and who's got, and I mean, what I mean by that, like, Alan West or Tim Scott or Mike Pence. Like, here's the thing. I see Mike Pence out there doing campaign activities. He's not going to get the Trump vote. He's got no chance of winning. I think he's a solid Christian, but, I think there's a lot of people in the Trump administration, whether it's rightly so or not, and I don't know, right? Wondering if he did everything he could of as vice president to help out Trump. And the thing is, before the election, I thought he was the best vice president ever. I thought that he always had Trump's back. He never took any of the glory for anything he did. I thought he was rock solid and all that. Yeah. And I just would love to know what is the truth. I'd love to know the truth because I think he's a good man.
Yes, I do too. I was very surprised with the way all of that ended. And I haven't really heard or seen much from Mike Pence lately. I mean, I know he's been out a little bit lately, but he kind of disappeared for a while.
Well, I think they're all just hoping things are going to blow over. But one person who did not blow over for was Mitt Romney, who got booed at the Utah GOP summit. He got soundly booed, as he should. That's my former governor of Massachusetts, where I grew up. And, I just can't think of a bigger turd in our party than him. He's just, he's everything that's wrong with him. And I was with, in fact, well, I don't want to say the names, but when he was getting ready to run for president, I was with some very influential people who were big donors to, to the Republican Party and to the Tea Party and the founders behind that whole movement. And I remember his wife saying, "That guy's not going to win anything. He's got no guts." And I was like, totally true. He's a guy who was embarrassed to do well. I mean, when you're embarrassed for doing well, I mean, the guy was ashamed of his wealth. And it's like, the only way you should ever be ashamed of your wealth is you did something dishonest.
Yeah, he needs some fortitude.
Yeah. Well, he's just a typical wishy-washy politician. He looks the role. He could star as the president in any TV show he wanted to if he could act. But unfortunately, it was great to see him get booed because I hope he's out of office. Yeah. I hope that Utah gets rid of him because, how can you, I don't know how they do it. I guess being a Mormon counts for a lot.
Yeah, I was wondering, I never knew, this is going to be way off topic. I never knew about the Mormon underwear. And I guess that's a question he is commonly asked about or something. And so I had to look it up and figure out what it was. And
Mormon underwear? And
I don't know if they all wear them or not, but it's a set, it's sort of a chaste type of garment that you wear in order to remember, your chastity. So just look at, I found it very curious. I don't know if it's still a thing in the Mormon community or not, but I had never heard of it. But apparently it's a commonly asked question to Mitt Romney is, do you wear the Mormon underwear?
Mormon underwear.
I couldn't slip by this conversation without mentioning that. I just had to do it.
Oh, good old Mormon underwear.
With me.
Now everyone, the top Google search out there. I don't want to make anyone mad.
Underwear. I'm not trying to disparage anyone. Maybe that sounds, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but maybe that this is a really antiquated thing. Maybe Mormon people don't even wear them anymore, but
I don't know. I'm going to have to put it out there. We got to know a few. I'm going to have to call them up and be like, all right, so what's this underwear thing?
What's the deal with the underwear? Okay.
Yeah. This is like a big red undersuit. Is it Superman underoos?
It looks like, like underwear from the 1800s or something.
Okay. So it's like, is it like a hoodie footy without the hoodie? So you got the socks built in. And
no, just like an undershirt and shorts, maybe for the guy. I can't remember what the women's one looked like.
Okay.
But
Well, I learned something today.
get off here and search it up.
All right. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it to our interview or my interview of Jonathan Hickory. Jonathan Hickory wrote this amazing book called Break Every Chain. And it's a police officer's battle with alcoholism, depression, and devastating loss. And it's the true story of how God changed his life forever. And this won an award for a reader's favorite book award winner. It's being made, it was made into a movie that's launching this summer with COVID and everything else going on. The movie industry is obviously in total chaos, but it's a phenomenal read. I worked with Jonathan Hickory. He's a good dude. And within these pages is some of the most brutal honesty about his past and things that he did that, it takes a lot of courage to write, and, to put it all out there for everyone. And, and I just think you guys are really going to enjoy this interview. And this interview, Mike and I talk about the challenges of police work right now, the things that are going on, and then we take him through his story with the book and what's going on with the movie and all those other things. So hope you guys enjoy this. We will not be coming back after it. So anything you want to say before we go?
I don't think so. Should I say a quick prayer?
Sure.
All right. Lord Jesus, we just thank you for this time today. And again, all the glory goes to you for this platform, for this opportunity to speak. And I pray that we would just draw people to this podcast to receive inspiration and hope and to just break out of any kind of bondage that is holding them captive right now. Lord, I pray that Jonathan Hickory interview would touch a lot of lives. And I thank you for his willingness to share some of those deep, dark things that are so hard to talk about. And thank you, Lord, that, the devil would want us to keep those things quiet. And I thank you for his courage and for anyone who is just able to share those things and bring them to light, because, Lord, we know that you can transform every dark corner of our souls and that telling the secret takes away its power. So, Lord, I pray you would use our testimonies to transform lives. And I pray for everyone listening that those who don't know you, Lord, I pray that they would be stirred, that your Holy Spirit would speak to them and do something personal so that they can just feel that touch of your love and want to give their lives to you. I pray you bless our week, Lord, and help us as we go live on Wednesday. I pray that our show would go well and you would connect the right listeners and callers to us, and that you would continue to bless this work for your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. See you guys on Wednesday. Bye. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Patriot Crusader Mission or the Hope Report, depending on which one you are watching this on. I'm your host, Jason Perry, former Navy SEAL, former Boston SWAT, former atheist, and now a Patriot Crusader that, is out there trying to, bring as many people to Jesus as I can and share my experience. I'm so excited to have today a good friend of mine who I knew him before he was famous, just to let everyone know. Jonathan Hickory. Jonathan is an author. He's a law enforcement officer, and he's, as he's about to tell you, he's got some pretty big news. If you haven't read his book yet, Break Every Chain, it is absolutely amazing book. And we're going to be talking about his story today, about, everything in this book and then everything that led up to it and then where he's going. So welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Jason. It's so good to be here, brother. I'm so thankful for our friendship and our brotherhood and just how we've grown together over the years. And yeah. I remember that it was probably, two and a half years ago now that when the book came out, and you were one of my very first interviews. So you supported me from the very beginning. We had no idea where this was going to go at that time. But I do remember you telling me at that time, you're not Jonathan Hickory anymore. You're Jonathan Hickory, author of Break Every Chain. So that's always, resonated with me. And I always remember that you have to be who God created you to be and own it. So thank you for your inspiration and your encouragement.
Yeah, well, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about in your book is when we give our testimonies as Christians, there's a fine line we have to walk between celebrating our sin and acknowledging our sin, and the collateral damage that you can sometimes do when you're doing your testimony and the people that are affected around you and all that stuff. You and your wife, Stacy, fearlessly waded into this. I remember seeing your video testimony, online a while ago, and the authenticity and the pain and your openness to admit your faults, it was extremely compelling. And I think you captured that in the book as well, right? As somebody who is right now, going through my own process with writing my story, I'm, constantly battling, I don't want to celebrate the sin. I don't want to hurt anyone by sharing what I'm doing. Everybody I know who's going to read that is going to know who I'm talking about if I describe them right. So I'm trying to figure out how to accomplish all that without carpet bombing everyone who was around me during that time and having them relive some horrible things. So, I'm going to have to talk to you sometime about that offline probably on how to do that. But I was just so impressed with how honest you are. And when I've talked to other authors, they're like, you got to put it all out there. If you don't,
you do. Yeah, you really do. It's one of the things that my prayer from the very beginning with this book was that it would glorify God. Mm-hmm. And so, let's put God in the spotlight, put me in the background somewhere. Obviously the story is about me and my life. But and there's a million stories out there, of people's lives. But, what makes this special and different is that I bear my heart wide open. Yep. And it's one of those things where I realized that that I was not alone in the things that I have faced. And the biggest lie that we are always told is that we're the only ones that have faced a certain sin, or that we're the only ones that have faced a certain challenge in life.
Right.
You're the only one that's struggling with depression or anxiety or anger, or feelings of hopelessness.
Right.
And that's just the biggest lie I think that the enemy has in his toolbox. And so if you can take your experiences in a tactful way, relay them to the world in a way that it can help others, that's where the hope comes in.
Yeah.
Because people start to realize it's almost like group therapy. If you've ever been to like a men's group or like a Bible study group, and they start really talking about life, and you start realizing that we're all broken, and there's not a single one of us that is not broken. And there's strangely a comfort in that, knowing that other people are messed up too, that we're all broken, and that and that's why we need the Lord. That's why we need our faith in Jesus.
Where I saw what you just described first before I was a Christian was when my dad became dry and started doing AA meetings. And then for like his big years, I'd show up for his coin, and watching the testimonies of an AA meeting. If you go up there, it is fearless. It is soul bearing. And, that's where I saw that. And, AA used to be a very godly program, and now it's migrated away to something pretty secular. Yeah. I'm sure it still does good, and every branch is different. But
I think they refer to like a higher power instead of, but there are Christian influenced versions of recovery programs like Celebrate Recovery. Have you heard of that?
I have not.
Yeah, that's a big one that's moving in a lot of churches, and it's very similar to AA, where you get chips and coins and things like that for your steps.
Well, and part of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is I just, I'm going to date this now, but on Monday, where Mike Lindell is launching Frank, and we're going to be one of the flagship programs on Frank. It's his social media thing. And, I was hired by Mike to do the Hope Report, which is a podcast that is about hope and helping addicts and helping people overcome challenges and helping on-ramp people to the faith. And then, we're really good at onboarding people we're not really good at sustaining people.
Right.
And we wanted to be a place every day where you could turn in for good news.
I love the name.
Yeah.
The Hope Report. Yeah. That's
and
great.
It's for Mike, is a great guy. He's a true champion and a patriot who is fighting for this country. He's put everything on the line. And he has a nonprofit called Lindell Recovery Network, where he's got a bunch of addicts helping addicts is how he does it, right? And it's faith-based. And it's wired into churches and Operation Restored Warrior and all that stuff. So your book here, Break Every Chain, and soon to be movie.
Yes, it's been made into a movie and it will be releasing soon. We don't have an exact date yet, but we're working hard with a distributor to get it out there on multiple platforms, digital and Blu-ray, DVD. So
awesome. So your story with addiction and the fact that just really fit nice into the Hope Report. And I mean, your story inspires hope, right? And inspires people to turn to Jesus, which is always the focus for us, right? We got to get out of the way. He's the whole hero in this story. We're just the tool.
That's right. Yep. Amen.
So, some of us are hammers, others are scalpels, some are screwdrivers, but he is the carpenter or, out there, out in creation, just, running the show. And too often I feel like, particularly today in the church with all these rock star preachers, is they try to make it about them and not about him. And the focus is always him. We're just plagiarizing everything that he said and did.
Yeah, that's
right.
So true.
He's the original author.
Yeah,
right.
Author and creator of our faith. That's right. Yeah, I think that we have to find preachers have to find the balance, because in a world that is so distracted, they have to be enticing with the gospel, and that can be difficult in old methods, and so it can be very difficult to walk that line between enticing and like rock star, like you said.
Well, I'll tell you, man. That old Field of Dreams saying, "If you build it, it'll come." A good friend of mine, my spiritual mentor, Pastor Ken Graves, he is one of the few pastors, he was the first one I saw that was out there who was willing to offend his congregation to fight for their souls. Right. Meaning that if he wasn't delivering, particularly when he travels, he says, if people aren't getting up and leaving because they don't know enough about me, I'm not preaching the gospel true enough to them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he just fearlessly gets out there and wades into every issue, and he doesn't care about donors. And guess what his church has done? Exploded.
Oh, wow.
Exploded because people want truth.
Yeah. They're hungry for it. Right?
They're hungry for truth. So he's got people traveling 6 hours by car to come to his stuff, and he's got, countless of followers all around the country. And then you see this with Pastor Greg Locke as well out of Nashville, who's another one who has totally waded into all the issues that we face today. And it's just, it's just been quite refreshing to see those two. It made me, when I met Ken, a lot of times when I was meeting pastors as a former SEAL, as a former cop, as an alpha male, I always felt like they were betas,
I know what you mean.
Yankee Zebra X-ray males, right?
Yeah.
They're just like, you shake their hand, they don't have a callus on it.
Right.
They just weren't real.
Right. Right.
And then you go,
what do you know about life?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, dude, you've lived in this glass little cage your entire life. You don't know anything.
Right.
And then you go, and I went and I met Ken Graves. I pulled up to I drove round the clock to get there. And then I'm like, we got to go see the church. We came here for this church. We moved 15 hours, to meet him.
Right.
We get up there, dude, and he's got this big trailer and they're rolling boulders off by hand, right? Him, and he's got this thing called Calvary Residential Discipleship, where it's literally addicts that he turns into pastors.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Wow.
And he's got, and then he's got them for males and he's got females. Right. And brother, they're out there, he's in a tank top and they're rolling these because this is right when COVID first started and they had to move their services outside and they didn't want vehicle attacks.
Oh, that's
And they're
smart.
rolling 500-pound boulders off this thing.
Wow.
And I shake him like, yes, this is a dude. He's got tattoos, scars. Like he looks at my face. He's like, man, you got some cool scars. And then he lifts up his arm and he's got like a scar like this big under his arm. He fell on it. He used to be a logger by trade. He fell on his chainsaw while it was going.
Oh, ouch. I'm sure that was a big scar. Yeah.
But that was the beginning of an amazing friendship. And, but I just feel like too often pastors try to put this perfect projection of what they are on. And I think guys, like, I know that are you a chaplain now still?
I am. Yeah. I'm also trained as a chaplain. Yep.
Yeah. And chaplains, I always admired them in the military because they were there, right? They were there experiencing stuff with the guys, they weren't like out on SEAL missions or any of that stuff, but they were over there uncomfortable, right? Yeah. They weren't, in a country club and, living a completely existence and then coming in and doing something, totally different. And I just feel like, there's a lot of different ways to be a pastor. And for what we need today, I feel like Jesus is separating things right now. He's separating the true believers from the phonies. The gate is narrow. Right. And before the end, there's going to be a massive falling away. And I feel like we're kind of in that zone right now where the real pastors, I think, are going to step forward. And they're going to be the ones on the front lines with people. It's going to be the guys with the cops who are out there who have the hardest job in America, which I want to thank you for your service because I know you're still serving as a cop.
Yes, thank you.
That's literally the hardest job in America. It is. Having done it, I did it pre-Ferguson, right? I got out right before Ferguson hit.
Good timing.
Yeah, perfect timing. Right. I was there. I remember though when the first wave of this anti-cop rhetoric hit, and it came from President Obama. And it's when he got up on there and said, it's obvious the Cambridge police behave stupidly. I don't have all the facts, but it's obviously they behave stupidly. When it turns out that his professor friend from Harvard was actually the guy who was breaking into his house and they just wanted to see his ID to prove that he lived there, which if you caught me breaking into my house, you'd ask me for the same thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And I'd say, here's my ID or run my information.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be like, of course, thank you for checking to make sure that this is my place. But, instead from that moment on, everyone was going to call Obama on me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I remember that moment. It definitely didn't make the average police officer feel good. I think that it is a hard time to be an officer. It is, because there are good officers out there. Are good. There's so many good cops out there that want
95%.
Yeah, there's so many out there, and yes, there are people that make mistakes, and there are cops that have biases, and we all do. But there are so many of us that want to help people, and we drive around with the word police on our car, and we're hated just for that. And somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it. It's although without police, where would we be, right?
Right.
So it's just a necessary thing. But, so it's disheartening, but, I try to keep my eyes focused on Christ and try to lead from the tip of the spear and show the people that I interact with that that's not me, that I'm a good cop and I want to help others.
It's just so crazy, right? Because on what effect you can have with the gospel as a cop.
Yes.
I remember Gordon Hugenberger of Park Street Church telling me, Jason, you can go places I can never go, to people who need to hear this more than anyone.
True.
You're on the front line with people on their darkest hour. And I remember I arrested a guy here and, and I just started talking to him like, what are you doing, dude? You're a good looking, smart dude. What, I picked you up on a felony warrant. What's going on? You can totally turn your life around, and just share the gospel with him. He reached out to me years later and said, dude, you were the catalyst that helped change my entire life. He's totally clean, sober, does everything right.
Amazing. Wow.
And that just made me feel so good. I barely remembered him. And then all of a sudden I went back and looked and I'm like, holy smokes. Yeah. And so, again, I think guys like you on the front line are the tip of the spear, against the darkness, and I just can't say how much, say enough about how much respect I have for you guys.
Well, I think the light of Christ, it changes your shift, how you view the world. And so you go from being an officer who's tired of dealing with, people that are just screwing up all the time and dealing with the same criminals over and over again, to this view of the world that, hey, they're just broken people.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that they're acting this way. It's because they're lost. They don't know Jesus, and they are filled with hopelessness and addiction and abuse and past traumas and things like that. And they don't know how to fight it.
Right.
And so, you have to use tact, and you have to use, discretion, because you start talking about Jesus off the, randomly. Obviously, you get a complaint for that.
Yeah.
But if they open the door, then you can walk through it.
Yeah. Well, I'm willing to take that report. I've had some crazy reports written about me, and that's one I'm willing to own every time.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to talk about, right now, there's some really high profile cases going on with law enforcement, and then we can dive into your story, your origin story, and all the way through this. But people out there want to support police. They don't know how. Like they're what happens is right now you've got two people. Anytime one of these incidents happens, you split into two things. The cop is always right group, and then the cop is always wrong group, right? And what I've been preaching is let the system play out. Mm-hmm. We've gotten so addicted to this instant justice lynch mob mentality, right, where there's so for example, whatever happens with Chauvin or however you say his name is, if he doesn't get found guilty of like first degree murder and given the electric chair, America's going to burn.
Right.
Because the media has set the narrative on that. They have set the narrative. Like I've been watching the trial, and have been watching the coverage, and it's so slanted one way. And that's not as a cop, as someone who's had to build cases, I'm looking at this, and if the cause of death is a drug overdose, then you can't charge him with murder because he didn't kill him.
Yeah, I would not want to be like on that jury.
No, and that's the intimidation factor, right? So you sit there and you think, is this guy going to is it capable? Like, why didn't they move the trial? Like they should have moved the trial. It's just, there's no way he's going to get a fair shot there. They're going to get an appeal just because of that.
Yeah, I think maybe a good place to hold the trial would have been like maybe middle of Antarctica. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, today you're exactly right. But I really think the social media, serves a lot of good purposes, but it serves a lot of bad purposes. But the press, we count on them to be our honest sources. And as we've seen lately, that's not really the case. And I just wish they would go in and just let the system play out. Right. There's a reason why a ridiculously high amount of police officers are acquitted of all charges, because what would a reasonable person do in that given situation? At 2 a.m, in the dark, you saw a gun, he shot at you once, he turned, and you thought he was turning with a gun in his hand, and tie goes to the cop.
Right.
You were there trying to affect the law, known felon. He tried to kill you once because he shot at you once. Why wouldn't he do it again?
Right.
So what would you do? And the average person, is a reasonable person, would make that assumption.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the average American citizen really and worldwide citizen really has no idea what this kind of decisions that a police officer has to make on a daily basis. And so you have to weigh everything. And you're right. Let the system play it out. We got to stop instantly judging, but that's human nature.
And I think that there should be a lockdown on all information until the trial's over, right?
Why release body cam footage and stuff like that if it's still being?
All you're doing is tainting the audience, or or tainting the jury pool and setting public expectations. Unless it's to totally prove that it was, like you can see with his body cam footage, it's 100%. He's in the clear. The guy's there with a machine gun raining down fire, and a sniper takes him out.
Even then, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, you're right. I agree though. I think they should hold on to it longer, and FOIA should probably not be so powerful. But.
No, FOIA can come after, I think. And it's just the double standard. If you look at, the Capitol police officer who killed Ashley Babbitt on September 6th, we don't know his name yet.
Right. So why is that protected?
Why is that protected, but not all these other people? Totally. And, I watched that video. That was a no-shoot situation, unless it was a national security situation. If, the vice president was behind that agent, or Speaker Pelosi or somebody was behind that, and they were told there. But the problem thing is like the training is so low. Literally, cops let them into that building. Like they were shaking their hands, high-fiving them, what's up, guys, whatever, the whole thing. And the first level of resistance there that girl encountered was lethal force.
Yeah.
A warning shot there. It's not something that most police departments train, and it's stupid. Right? You don't want people raining bullets down. I understand that.
Right.
But there are
No
exigent circumstances, right? Because they don't know that they've crossed into this national security threat there. They're just going through a building. They've watched Antifa loot and burn for an entire summer. They've watched everyone, do whatever they want. And they think they're going to be, they don't understand they're playing by a totally different set of rules in that building. Right. And I think if they had just taken a really ridiculous thick book or one of their 10,000 page bills and discharged around to it and said, listen, if you come through this door, I'm going to have to kill you.
Yeah.
That would have stopped it right then and there. They would have understood.
If there had been a way to convey that somehow in that moment, I totally agree. I think that it's very sad. That lady doing that, obviously
Air Force veteran, harmless.
Not a good idea to be doing it, but does it really reach?
Does it reach that? Was that offer
right.
in fear of his life?
Right.
From an unarmed female climbing through a window?
Right.
Right. If you change if you change any of that fact pattern, and I won't even go into that, it would be hell to pay.
Right.
But because of who she was and because of who she supported, it just gets swept up in the whole thing. And what did we hear? We heard that, there was shooting and there was this and there was that. No weapons recovered, no shots fired, no ballistics recovered, nothing.
Right.
And then they said that the Trump supporters actually beat up or killed a cop with a fire extinguisher. And it turns out he went home and had a stroke.
Oh, okay.
He had nothing, and he was a Trump supporter.
Yeah. So it all gets skewed, and
it was all a narrative that was pushed to drive people away from Trump because of that pivotal moment in history where we were at, right? And again, I'm not bringing politics in this. I'm just talking about the state of, federal law enforcement seems to get to play by different rules than on the street officers,
the rules of engagement,
and the accountability factor. I mean, you got, I won't even go down that. So people ask me, how do we fix law enforcement? And I think it's not just we have to fix society before we can fix it. Like when I look at all these things, there's one common factor with all of them. The subject is not complying, right? If everyone there is no pretty arrest, as you know. There's the only pretty arrest is put your hands behind your back. We'll settle this in court. And they go and you help them in the car and you have a conversation. You talk about sports, whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's the only pretty arrest. Every other form of arrest involves some sort of force of you making somebody do something they don't want to.
Right.
And there's no pretty way to do that.
Well, it is by definition a seizure of their rights, right?
Yeah.
Their civil rights. So, and when it goes wrong, when it goes awry, when people don't comply, and they resist, whether they believe it to be lawful or not, but that's usually when it goes south, right?
Yep. And, every one of these people would still be alive if they just listened. They had the power, right? Cops may have made bad decisions with the taser and they thought it was a gun or whatever, all this other stuff, right? So there is a part to play in some of these, right?
Let's take accountability on both sides.
Yes, but if, citizens need to be educated on how to handle with police and, all of us heard this going up 10-2, hands on the steering wheel. Yes, sir. No, sir. Just do what they say. Right. And I've watched some social media people talk about how you don't have to comply with police if you don't think that you've done anything wrong. And I'm like, that is a way to get killed. And it's a disaster. What if this Army lieutenant or whatever who got pepper sprayed and all this drama over. What if, pretend that it wasn't just a traffic stop for a license plate that wasn't displayed appropriately. Let's pretend instead that there was a shooting and there was that car matched the description of it, right? And that's why they did a felony stop. Now the person in the car isn't going to know that.
Still clueless, right?
He's still clueless.
Has no idea.
But they have to treat that like it's life and death. And even if he did nothing wrong, just the wrong guy in the wrong car, he's got to comply with that. And then it would have been, okay, come on, hands behind. Okay, this guy's playing the game. You come up, all right, sit down. All right, sorry, sir. This is what's going on, why we pulled you over. Have a nice day. Right. And if I was a jerk, that's what internal affairs is for.
Sure.
Right. There's a system for that.
That's right. Yes.
So people can understand that, but what I think needs to happen with cops is we need to professionalize police across the nation. And what do I mean by that when I say I want a position that's just right for you? Is I think you have to pay them appropriately. I like to see every cop in America gets, $100,000, as a salary. I think that would professionalize it. It would elevate the candidate, the quality of the candidate. It would allow them to work one job 40 hours a week or whatever, and not 80 or 90 in order to make the ends meet with overtime and everything else. Right. And you would get you could demand more, and they'd all be living a higher quality of life, and it would just professionalize things across the board. Instead, you got cops working for $14 an hour in the South.
Yeah, I've heard that.
$14 an hour. Who is going to do a job where these are your outcomes? You're okay. You're dead. You're in the hospital. You're going to jail, or you're sued into extinction. Those are the 5 outcomes of every call.
Wow. Thanks for,
you know what I'm saying?
I can't wait
if you make if you make any mistake, any one of those outcomes can happen to you.
That's true.
And people don't understand that. And if you want to attract the people that are going to do that, because what's happening now is I know guys who are some of the best cops in the world, like, it's not worth it, and they're walking out because they're in a bad neighborhood, and it's just a matter of time. Everyone's baiting them. Everyone who gets pulled over now wants to be the next YouTube star who is, gets to make the cop look like a fool.
Yeah. I've started to see it seems like the nation has become very polarized one way or the other. You love and support the police, and you want to let them know how much you support them, and even take an extra moment to say, hey, I just want you to know that I support you guys. Or the extreme other, that offends me, that the fact that there's like a thin blue line, sticker or something like that, we've become so polarized, either for or against the police. And you shouldn't have to be that, you should be able to say, like, I'm going to obey the law. I'm going to obey, if I get pulled over, I'm going to comply. And, hopefully I won't get pulled over, but I do think that definitely that the police have to take accountability too with better training. I know that, the academy, I think that so many young officers, it depends on the academy, right? But when they train to become brand new police officers, it's hammered into them that every car you stop is a death box. Every car you stop, someone is going to jump out and start spraying bullets. And that is a little bit unrealistic approach. So if you program that into people's minds, then there's that fear that now every car has a gun in it, definitely. And so you have to be aware of reality and also be safe. And it's a hard line to walk. Yeah, it is a hard line. And the difference there is a shift in perspective is every car could be dead and not is. Right. And I saw, it was a big culture shift going from Boston PD to rural policing in the South, where in Boston, no one had guns. And here I'm pulling up and there's like 3 guns on the seat. Right. Because that's what they've been told to do. Yeah. And there's no charge. There's no nothing. It's just whatever. Right. So, I remember that first time and I'm just like, holy smokes, this is a totally different set of rules down here. Yeah. And I'm a pro second guy. I like that fact. And I do this right now. I don't put all my stuff out. I leave it where it's at. I have a safe in my Suburban, and that's where everything goes. That's smart. So, again, I think, being educated on how to work with police, professionalized police department, paying them more, and then standardizing the training across the board, right? Like there needs to be a national standard. Like it's got to be elevated. It's got to be done. You can't shoot twice a year. I know that you're saying talk about train, like let's professionalize police. Well, let's increase the interaction with the community as far as training the community as well. Totally. I know that the ACLU has stuff on their website, publicly available, on how to get through an encounter with the police. And I haven't looked at it in detail, but why can't our PDs be doing that? Yeah, like why isn't that a part of every kid's education in high school?
Like you're
Driver's
16,
maybe,
you're going to
right.
be a part of this. This is how you handle interactions with the police.
Right.
Right. And this is how you handle this. Like that makes common sense to me.
Yeah.
Right. You get more use out of that than calculus for 99% of the people. You know what I'm saying?
Right, because otherwise you're depending on whatever influence is in that child's life. So it could be the parents, and it could be friends or whatever. But if you have some sort of curriculum, I don't know how realistic it is, but I think that if we could take it and make it so that we're training people better on how, from a young age on how to comply and things like that, I think it'd be good.
And how to comply, and then also show them that there are avenues to take, like file a complaint, and if
they took your civil rights, then sue them.
Yeah, exactly. There are ramifications. So document, comply. You're never going to win. They're never going to come out on top of that situation fighting somebody who's afraid that you're going to kill them, which is every cop.
Right.
Because we've all seen countless videos of cops and, know the names of cops who've been gunned down for no reason at all.
Yeah, here in Virginia recently, yep.
So that's policing in a whole that I just wanted to, talk, because, anytime I get another cop on the show, I like to talk about, how we can fix this and see if we can come up with some ideas. Yeah. But let's get into break every chain, and let's get into your story. So who is John Hickory? Tell us about you.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. So I was born and raised in Massachusetts, which I know that's stomping grounds for you as well. Born in a small town called Upton, and then moved to another small town called Rutland, Worcester County, not too far from Boston, and central Massachusetts. I had a good upbringing. I'm one of 4 siblings, and my mom and dad were happily married. My father was very intelligent, and he has his name on a few U.S. patents.
Oh, wow.
He was an abrasive technologies engineer. That means
Velcro.
No.
It sounds like it, though, doesn't it?
It does, abrasive, right? Like sandpaper, grinding wheels, things and used in industry, and just a brilliant guy, and was the breadwinner for our family. We had a bed and breakfast we ran out of our colonial New England home, and life was really good. We had
way ahead of your time there doing that. Like Airbnb, everyone does it now, but you guys were doing it a long time ago. Okay,
in the late '80s, early '90s, I think we were getting $100 a night.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so that's some places won't even pull that on Airbnb now.
Yeah.
But, we had a very good upbringing. We had a swimming pool. I loved to go fishing. Just normal American kid. When I was 11 years old, I found out that my father, my hero, had terminal cancer. And he battled that cancer at the same time that he was battling a lawsuit against him brought by a former employer alleging that he was stealing trade secrets. So he's fighting to clear his name while fighting for his life.
Right.
And we're watching the cancer destroy him. His unlike me, who I'm pretty much have no hair, he had still all his hair, but of course he lost it to the chemotherapy treatments. And just watching your hero, your father, be destroyed by cancer is devastating for a child. It's devastating for our whole family. But he was able to clear his name, and about 3 months later, he passed away. He was 49 years old.
Wow.
I was 12, and 3 months later, after he passed, we moved from Massachusetts to Virginia. My mom, she had gone to nursing school. She needed to find a job, and Virginia was the place. So we ended up in Virginia 3 months after he passed away. New school, new friends, new, everything that I knew.
Culture shock.
Every support system I knew was as a 12-year-old boy was gone. And so all these feelings of anger and depression and just like anger at everything, anger at myself for maybe not being a better son, anger at at God for taking my dad, and I prayed every night that he would not. Anger just at the world in general, and I carried that with me, hardcore carried that trauma for many years. It made teenage years very difficult. I was involved in, when I got my driver's license, I had multiple reckless driving incidents, and just road rage, and things like that. And so somehow I was able to become a police officer at the seasoned age of 23.
Wow.
Yeah. And
with your driving record, that must have been.
Yeah, it was. Well, I had learned to cool my jets and a little bit at that point, but I think that there were definitely things that probably should have been reported that might not have been, and so it's one of those things where I don't know why God let me into that role when He did, but I was doing pretty good at that point. I didn't have any problems with substances, and I had met this beautiful woman, my wife Stacy, and we got married about 3 months after I got released from my field training as a police officer. So brand new marriage, brand new career, everything's going great, American dream, all these things. And then I started facing the job as a police officer. And, as the things that we see are not always pretty. A lot of darkness, a lot of death, abuse, addiction, just the brokenness of humanity. And when I started to see that, I just did not know how to cope with it at all. And I didn't feel that it was okay to talk about it. It's very clear that you're supposed to suck these things up, and you're supposed to be a tough cop, and you're supposed to just deal with it. Like, if you signed up for this, right?
Yep.
So I didn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't feel like bringing it. I was told you don't bring it home. You don't talk to your family about it. Don't talk to your wife. They won't understand. And so few years into the job, I started to use alcohol as a coping mechanism. And, now with all that I know about trauma, because I now teach a class on trauma, mental wellness, suicide prevention. And now with all these things, I realized that the unresolved trauma of my childhood that I was still carrying with me certainly compounded the trauma that I was seeing now on a daily basis as an officer. And so this alcohol abuse started to become a problem fairly quickly. And life went on. I started to chase my job as a police officer. My personal life began to diminish, and my marriage began to struggle. And the alcoholism got worse. Meanwhile, I was selected as a fatal crash reconstruction officer and involved in
tough job, man.
In many,
worst job on the planet, in my opinion.
Hundreds of crash reconstructions. I did that for 7 years, and it is hard because you're not only dealing with really traumatic crashes where people are getting maimed or killed, but you're also a liaison to their family.
Oh man,
so
that shouldn't be that. They shouldn't. That officer shouldn't be doing that. It should be, they need to have somebody, I think, separated from that, particularly with a certain special skill set of training to.
Well, many departments, and our department included, has a victim witness program, and so they're really great but a lot of times they're not so involved in car crashes. It's more the domestic violence.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But that is a lot of times some of that stuff is anticipated, whereas anyone can have a car wreck on any day and no one's counting on it ever happening, and it's completely random. But I want to stop you there, and I want to talk about two things on the way.
Yes.
One, anger. I'm very familiar with anger. Anger was my fuel. It got me through everything in my life until I found Jesus. So it got me through, rough neighborhood. It got me through SEAL training. It got me through every struggle I've ever had. That was my go-to source for fuel. And the problem was it was always there, and it was always eating me alive as well. Right.
Yeah.
So, where I had, I went out and I got saved, found God, and I really struggled switching fuel sources from, going in the gym and not putting on the most angry, hateful music to fuel my workout. Now I'm like, I can't listen to any of this stuff. It turns me off. And
praise God.
Yeah,
Praise
exactly.
God for that, yeah. I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, and it was just like I felt empty to a point almost, as far as not having that rage on tap that I had. So, that's one part of it. And the thing you talked about, that trauma program that I went through called Operation Restored Warrior, which is also a part of the Lindell Recovery Network, deals with veteran suicide and healing vets, cops, and others of that trauma or that wound.
Yeah.
Right. And, I picked up my wound very young, and my wound was abandonment. Right.
As a child.
As a child. Yeah. And so I saw the entire world through this gaping hole in my heart.
Yeah.
That was like an axe wound in the middle of my heart. Was my wound, and it tainted everything I ever did.
It does.
It, it tainted my friendships, my work ethic, everything. Right. Because it was, I can't trust everyone. Everyone's going to turn on me. Everyone's going to abandon me. Everyone's going to so I never would go all in. I'd always keep, something back.
Sure.
And until I got that healing, that was the great part about finding was filling that hole and getting true healing from Jesus of my wound in my heart. Just totally unlocked parts of me that made me happier. Like no one's happier than me. Like I'm one of the happiest dudes I know. I got so much going for him. So blessed beyond belief.
Yeah.
Even when we were struggling, I'm still like, I got an amazing marriage. I got great kids. I got, could business be better? Yeah. But
right.
I mean, I'm living a storybook life, as far as I'm concerned. So again, on those two parts, I really understand that. And, so again, the wound, which was you called trauma. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Like your trauma, which was you lost your dad. If you had to break it down, did you treat it like abandonment, or was it how are you processing that?
Yeah, no, I think that it is like abandonment. First of all, just on a side note, trauma is a Greek word. It means wound. So, it's just kind of interesting. So many people, the word trauma, they don't really fully understand that it is a wound. And it's not a wound that you can see. And that's so many people struggle with. But yeah, I think it was abandonment. I felt like my hero, my dad, was gone, and now the world that was so wonderful, it was now full of so much uncertainty. Right. And I felt like everyone around me had normal lives and was flourishing. Yeah. And I was drowning. Yeah. And I was screwed up, and I was different than everyone else, and no one understood my pain. And so that translates into anger. You are angry because no one can understand how you feel. No one can relate to you, and you feel all alone.
So were you raised, you were raised in Boston. Were you raised with any religion at all?
Yes. So when I was a young man, very young, we were raised in the church. We had a small church called Emmanuel Chapel we went to in Upton, Mass. And, probably pretty small church, but I remember I have fond memories of it.
Protestant, Catholic?
I think it was non-denominational.
Okay. Wow. One of the few.
Yeah.
Boston is a Catholic bastion.
I know they did communion, and I know that we had fellowship after church Sunday a month, where I'd get to eat lots of different cookies and pastries and things like that. That's about all I remember.
But you didn't have to do Sunday school on CCD or any of that other stuff.
We had Sunday school. We didn't have to do it.
Right. Yeah, I just remember growing up as an atheist, all my friends who were Catholic, without a doubt, every one of their Sundays was blown. That doing was
CCD. So I recently got to spend a lot of time with Ignacio Matinha, who plays me in the movie based on the book. And Ignacio is a phenomenal actor. You got to see the trailer.
Really good movie. Guys.
And Ignacio was raised Catholic. And so, we had some conversations about that, about how he was raised. And it's just I don't want to insult the Catholic community in any way, but it is so different to me, the way that, they are raised in almost like I don't know. It's almost like a routine, that they have to go through. And, I think that they find comfort in that. And, it does not mean that it distracts from their faith, but we need to make sure that we always remember that it's about the relationship with Jesus and with God, and not necessarily about making sure that we're doing the right faith-based exercises.
Yeah, I can give you my theory on that. I think where Catholics mess up, and again, they're Christians, think there's a lot of great Catholics out there, is they outsource the mentoring of their kids in the relationship with Jesus to the church.
Sure.
Instead of the father of the family leading that, right? And being there for that rite of passage, like, the bar mitzvah for, and the bat mitzvah for the Jewish community, where you understand the rules of God, you are accountable to the law, and now you're a man, right? And what happens is they get into these classrooms and it's taught just like everything else, and it's informational, but every single one of my friends that I knew back then that was Catholic is no longer religious.
Right.
They no longer, but they all follow, a lot of them fall away. And it's just very sad, and, and again, I'm not a Catholic. I haven't gone through those things, and I've talked to a lot of them to kind of figure out why is that?
Well, I was able to be in a Catholic church not too long ago, and I remember seeing this, some sort of I don't know if it was a shrine or a saint or something like that. And it was like, you have to put a coin in to say a blessing, or, and I'm like, what? Like, what is this? And so I think that it's things like that cheapens it and maybe makes people just turned off from it because it doesn't seem so genuine. Yeah,
it just, every time, C.S. Lewis said the ring of truth, right? For me, when I hear a pastor or when I read a passage that is profound to me, that's in tune with my soul, I feel like there's a chord that runs through the middle of me and it gets strummed, and it's like the ring of truth.
Yeah, the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, it's the Holy Spirit, and it's me being tuned to the Holy Spirit.
Right.
And I have never been more uncomfortable and further away from that than when I was in a Catholic church. They're speaking in languages I don't understand. It seems it's very, it wasn't relational.
It's ritual.
Yeah, more ritual. Yeah. So again, and I don't want to turn this into a Catholic bashing fest, but it's just something that, I'd love to sit down and talk to more, because I've talked to them a lot. And I do know, like, the guy who played Jesus in The Passion, was Henry, what's his name? I can't remember his name.
I couldn't tell you. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but I mean, I love listening to that guy speak. I mean, he's amazing, and he's a Catholic. So there's one that actually held on that is pretty cool, but so I don't know how I get sidetracked on that.
I think just the way you were growing up and your friends.
Yeah.
Were Catholic, some of your Catholic friends.
Yeah. So always, whether you had faith or not. So through your teenage years, you obviously didn't lean into, did you track further in the church? Like, where did you separate?
So I was raised that way, and then in my teenage years, I even went to a Christian school, a private school, and I think that was probably what saved me from completely spiraling into out of control and the depths of depression. My mother, when I was applying to be a police officer and filling out the references, and she told me that she prayed that they would not call her to talk to her, and they never did, which is
strange.
Yeah, it is strange. But she said that she prayed that they would never call her because she was afraid of me becoming a police officer, because of my anger issues.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So that's just a small window into it, right? And I'm sure you can relate to the rage that can consume you. So I fell away from it once I was, away from it. Once it was no longer a part of my life. And as soon as I cleared high school, I started taking some college classes, and depression and zero consequence for not going to class quickly took over, and I dropped out of like everything that I even attempted. So I did come back and do some school later, but we were talking about the alcoholism starting to become a problem as I was moving forward in my police career, and I was winning awards as an officer. I was actually, a drunk driving enforcement officer, and I thought that it was not hypocritical because I would never drink and drive, so I was somehow better than all those people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm seeing firsthand all these broken people who are, I'm arresting for drunk driving and other alcohol related offenses, and I'm like, well, I'm different. I'm different from them because, and I'm not, and you kind of deny it. You deny the addiction. You deny, well, everybody drinks, all the cops around me are talking about how they can't wait to have that drink when they get home, and I'm going to get, messed up tonight and things like that if they had a bad shift. So it's very culturally accepted, which it didn't help me to fight it, So probably about 10 years went by. My life, my personal life, my wife and I had our daughter born in 2009. Her name is Anna. She's now 11. But when we were, I was starting to become this extremely bitter, cynical, angry person, and I was nasty to my family. Verbally abusive, if nothing else, and just not a nice guy to be around. But at work, I was the shining star, and it was like I think that a lot of cops, it's like the only thing they can do right, because their all the trauma they face that they don't resolve. They don't go to talk to anybody about it. They don't deal with it appropriately. A lot of times it'll reflect in their personal lives. As their personal lives start to spiral downward, then they start to cling to the job, because it's the only identity they have that actually is working for them.
Yeah, the husband role, not so much. The father role, not so much. The whatever, the friend, brother, whatever. It's like, no, I'm a cop.
And I'm saying that because I was there.
Sure.
And I see it in so many others as well. In 2013, my wife Stacy and I were pregnant with our second child. We were expecting. It was almost like, even though I was in such a dark place and the alcoholism was to the point where I had to drink every night. If I didn't drink every night, if I did not drink, I would get withdrawal symptoms. Things felt like they were crawling on my skin.
Oh, man.
It was a real addiction, and it absolutely controlled me. I was probably pouring a couple $100, $200-$300 out a month on alcohol, and so this glimmer of hope shows up in the form of a pregnancy, and I'm like, well, I don't know that I really want to bring another child into this dark world, like that's the kind of thoughts that I was having. And about 5 months into the pregnancy, 20 weeks. Stacy started having some complications and was put on bed rest, and I just denied it that anything bad was happening, and I continued to drink, and the baby was born deceased at home in our master bathroom.
Man.
And when that happened, just the most devastating, now it's like this brand new trauma. So all this death, all this darkness was happening to me at work, but it wasn't directly related to me. And so I felt like I was in this microcosm, this bubble almost, where I hadn't been affected by it. I mean, yes, I was terrified to drive down the street because I thought that I was going to be in a fatal car wreck. And so I always had to have my kids, my daughter in the best car seat and the best car, the best crash safety ratings. But when we lost it turned out to be a baby boy, and we named him Christian. That came to my wife in a dream before we actually knew that it was a boy. But that's in the book. So sorry that I'm sidetracking a little bit.
No.
But when we went through that loss, found out that it was a boy, I just felt like, God's taken my father from me, and now God's taken my firstborn son from me. And so if God even exists, he kind of sucks.
Right.
And that was the mentality I had. And this new, now the death that I'd been able to separate myself from had come into my own home and into my own life. And when that happened, this new darkness, this new heaviness, that I had never known before fell over me. And it quickly deteriorated my life. I went into self-destruct mode where I tried to fix this new trauma with everything, all coping mechanisms that I used to have. So I didn't just have drinking, which is an unhealthy coping mechanism, but still it's a coping mechanism, right? But I also had, my motorcycle, which I rode here today, and working out. You're a gym rat, so it kind of helps you to feel better and helps with that mental battle. And man, I'd be in the gym at midnight, just hammering it out, and nothing was helping. All the anger.
Well, that's your rage, right? That was a great vent for your rage, so you wouldn't blow up all the time. That's what I used to use it for.
Yeah, and
it's someplace I could channel it and dump it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly what I was doing. and I was and listening to all the angry music, and even started listening to like top 40 during that time, which I really hadn't done before. And I don't know, it was making me feel a little bit better, even though it was dark music. So, then when that didn't help, I just started getting into this. I felt like I wanted to die. I couldn't look my wife in the eye. I couldn't talk to her. I somehow saw her as like the source of this.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And that's so screwed up, but that was what was going on in my screwed up brain that was untreated, unhealed. That's what unresolved trauma will do to your mind. And so I tried to talk to a senior officer about it that I really trusted, and he gave me just horrible advice, and it didn't help at all. And I won't quote what he said because it was so disgusting, but it just, I went to the wrong sources to try to get help. And so then infidelity started, affairs, and just all sorts of self-destructive behavior because I wanted to die, and I didn't care who I hurt.
Right.
And I didn't care,
and you wanted to feel good.
Got hurt. Yeah, that's right. And it's awful. And it's something I'm so ashamed of and not proud of, but this was part of what brought me to the Lord. So eventually this kind of behavior, especially as a police officer, will catch up with you. And so I found myself about a week after we got back from a Disney vacation, our very first one with our 5-year-old daughter, that I didn't want to go on because I would rather stay home and drink. But I reluctantly did go and packed a bunch of alcohol with me. And I got home, and about a week later, I got called into internal affairs. Internal affairs is not a place I'm familiar with. I know you're very familiar with them, but so at that point in my career, I had recently been named Officer of the Year in a 150-man department, which is not something that I say to boast. It is something that I tell you to.
It's context.
It's context because it shows you how I was chasing the job, because it was
right.
the only thing I knew.
Yeah, that was the image that you had, and that you were putting on that illusion, and that was your pose. You're John Hickory, the squared away officer, and that was your identity while you were in uniform.
Right.
And then, that took everything from that took everything you had, and then you just devolved every time you were out of that role.
That's right. So, internal affairs, and they put the they put the tape recorder, the digital recorder, voice recorder.
Oh, I'm familiar.
Down on the table, and they hit record, and they say, marched in there by my supervisor, and you're under investigation for conduct unbecoming of an officer, and you need to turn in your laptop, your department cell phone, and you need to turn over your passwords and your lock codes. And I'm just feeling like I'm going to throw up. It's like, take the feeling that you got when you called to the principal's office and multiply it times 10 million. And so conduct unbecoming of an officer in the discipline matrix, you can be fired for that.
Right.
And
there's your only good identity left, being threatened.
Yes, and it's being threatened for investigation into, infidelity.
Right.
And so they allowed me to, I think, go home early that day. And I ended up, taking my uniform off, and I'm just laying on the bed. And this is the moment, this is the moment where the battle for my soul was raging. I'm alone in the house. It's very quiet. And, I've just been delivered this news. You're under investigation, and you're not allowed to talk about it with anyone. So I'm like, okay, well, I can't talk to my wife about it anyway, because it's about infidelity. And if I do, I know I'm going to lose her. I'm going to lose my job. I'm definitely going to get fired. And I'm going to lose, when I lose my wife, I'm going to lose my daughter too, because that's just the way the world works. Right. And the gun's 20 feet away, and it's like this voice is saying, end your life, just do it. You're done. Your life is over. And I had this vision as I'm wrestling with those thoughts, that I had this vision of I don't know if it was the fires of hell, the gates of hell. I don't know. I saw fire, and it honestly just scared the living crap out of me. And I was like, okay, you need to take a minute here and think about this, because if you do this, there's no coming back.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're in the middle of that storm, brother, like the darkness is overwhelming. You can't see in the middle of a sandstorm, in the middle of a heavy downpour. You can't see more than 2 inches in front of your face. In front of your face. And so that's where it was. And you know, this is the moment that I just, God, like, take it, because I can't do any anymore. You know, I'm done. I just couldn't do it anymore. So that's when the surrender began. But you know, full surrender takes a little bit.
Oh yes, it does. So let me pause you there.
Yeah.
For a second. So when you know, when people lose hope, right? That is when the enemy comes calling, right?
Yeah.
And so many veterans lose their life because they buy into this lie that my family would be better without me.
Right.
And cops, same thing. You know, so many people who end up taking their life is like, I'm nothing but pain on my family. I'm this, that, and the other. And they don't see what they could be. They see what they used to be or what they are in that moment.
That's right.
And they need to think of what they can be for their family. And that's the hope factor.
That's right.
And, you know, and like you said, that surrender is so key. And, you know, because I think about all the times in my life when I was hopeless, and that's when I would do the worst stuff.
Yeah.
Because I had no hope. I was desperate.
Right.
Right.
You don't care. You know, you self-destruct, and you have nothing that you're fixing your eyes on for that hope.
And then there's a great thing that happens when you're in that storm, and when you can only see 2 inches in front of your face. You stop worrying about all the steps in front of you, and you just worry about the next one. Because that's the only one you can see.
That's right.
And then you start taking that one step at a time, right? Because
it kind of sucks at the moment.
It does. But until you accept that, like I remember in my own walk, I spent all my time trying to muscle all my steps. Like I picture my steps being this crooked path. And I would sit there, I'd be on step 5. And I would be worried about step 576. Right. And I'm like, wait, you're out of line. Get over there. And I'd spend all my effort trying to get that in line instead of just taking step 6 and step 7. Because I can't control what's down there. I don't know what's going to be there. I need to just focus and do the next right thing. So go ahead. And it sounds like that's what you did.
Well, it took a while. You know, this investigation lasted about 2 months, and that's a long time to wonder what's going to happen to you.
Yeah. Which the way the internal affairs in the South works is criminal. It's absolutely criminal. The law enforcement in the South with no union representation, you know, haven't gone to internal affairs in both places. Not for me as a witness in one. I had union representative that walked in and they'd be like, don't answer that, don't answer that, don't whatever. Just there to let me know that they had my back and they saw the traps that were going on or whatever. Versus recorder, you know, the crap they pull down here, which I am not a fan of whatsoever, because you don't know. You're scared, right? You need somebody to see clearly who's outside of this of what's going on. But anyways, go ahead.
No, you're right. I was very scared. But so in my fledgling state, you know, hadn't even been to church yet, I went into work, you know, maybe I don't remember, a day or 2 later, and just so much anxiety and so much struggle you couldn't wipe it off my face. And I went to my commanding lieutenant and I said, what do I do? Like, I know I can't talk to anybody about it, but I don't know what to do. Like, and instead of saying like, hey, I need help, because no cop is going to say that.
Right. That was your way of doing it.
That was my way, you know, and there's a lot of different ways that people have. They'll try to normalize saying like, hey, you ever have any kind of dreams or, you know, nightmares, you know, just trying to put the feelers out to see how you're going to respond. Like, if you start to laugh at them, then they're going to shut up and that's it.
Right.
But this lieutenant had, you know, he's now a chief at another agency. Like, he's an amazing leader. And he saw in that moment my cry for help. And he got the department psychologist on the phone, and I don't know how he's able to get the guy on the phone because he's a super busy guy, but he got the psychologist on the phone and said, make an appointment with this guy. And so now I had like this directive, like this order from my commanding lieutenant, go get help. You know, you need to go get help. This is an order. And so I did. And that was that was what immediately helped to talk me off the ledge. Well, it turns out the psychologist was a Christian guy. He couldn't talk about it till I opened the door. But when I started talking about faith, he could use scripture and stuff.
Right.
So he was an amazing person that God put in my life at that point when I needed him the most. And he was the only person that I could talk to. He was the only friend that I had, because a lot of people hated me at that time. And I couldn't talk to my wife, I didn't feel. And so ended up, I didn't lose my job, but I still had to face all these things, the infidelity and all the destructive behavior. And so my wife and I eventually, went into crisis mode because I didn't want to tell her. And God took care of that for me.
Yeah.
So that's when the full surrender kind of came, because, I hadn't fully surrendered. I wasn't willing to tell her my sins against her. And I had started to drink again. I immediately, when I said, okay, God, I surrender, like I tried to cut back, but now I found myself on a midnight shift and, I needed to sleep, and would justify the sin that way. And when I say sin, I mean abusing alcohol and drinking to get drunk. And so full surrender happened when I finally had to face crisis with my wife, and we were able to find a faith-based marriage counselor, and we went through about 5 months of marriage counseling, which, by the way, was not directed at the marriage. I thought, okay, marriage counseling, well, this should be good, right? No, it was great, but it was hard work, because it actually, the counselor ended up focusing on me and all my unresolved trauma, all the way back to the loss of my father as a child, because that's really where it all began. So God is good. My wife chose to forgive. She didn't have to. She had every right to walk away from me, and she chose to forgive. It took a long time, but God has completely restored my life.
So let's talk about that. A lot of people, they don't understand that when you mess up and you ask somebody for forgiveness, and that's a process.
That's right.
Like they can't pretend they unsaw stuff or undid things or undo that hurt. That's going to healing's going to, and everyone just wants to turn their back and no, I asked for forgiveness. I'm good. I repented my sins. I'm done. Right. I'm a new man. I'm moving forward. And it's like, yeah, you may be heading that way.
I swear.
Yeah. But the person that you have been abusing or, who you've done wrong in your life, it takes time for them to forgive you and to see you, that you are a changed person, like Joseph with his brothers.
Right. Yeah.
That's true. He tested them. Right? He came in and he gave him a chance to sell one of his other brothers out.
Yeah.
And, came back and he saw that they were different men. They were falling over each other. They take me. Don't take, him.
That's right.
And
beautiful story.
Yeah. And, and that's what we're called to do. Trust but verify, right? And put out tests.
Well, how many times have you talked to somebody and they said, well, I found Jesus.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, I'm going to support you in that.
Yep.
But
let's see.
In the back of your mind, you're saying, well, we'll see, right?
Right.
And so many people will draw towards the light, and then they see what's involved in the walk of a Christian warrior, and they're like, nah, it's so much easier to just live for the world. Yeah.
Yeah. It really, it's a sad thing to see. And I think it's because, again, I feel like, and I shouldn't be saying I feel like, I know, it's the churches that are not putting out strong Christians anymore. They just aren't. They're not giving the truth. They're afraid to offend, so many people in the audience. They can't do that. So they become so seeker friendly, this on-ramp. Here we go. Jesus, rainbow, unicorns. It's all good. Come on in. It's all love, 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 love. No, there's judgment.
Right.
Right. Yeah. There is a whole nother part of this that your Christian warrior brothers, people ask me, why is not going to church such a bad thing? You can just do it online. And I'm like, look at the SEAL teams, or if you're on a SWAT team, or you're going to go clear a house with your partner, you can't see everywhere. You need somebody to watch your back of what you can't see. Yeah. And sometimes you don't realize you're even off the path. And it's your buddies that are like, what is wrong with you? Like, this isn't who you are. Yeah. Like, you need to figure out, and people who are going to hold you accountable for. And that's why the in-person church is so good, because you can put on a fake show on the phone, or you can put a fake thing on here. But when you're around and you catch your buddy checking out some girls, married guy checking out some girls behind, or he's never cussing, and now every other word out of his mouth is an F-bomb. Right. Something's up, and hopefully you have the relationship with him that you're invested enough in him that you can call him to account and say, "What's wrong, brother?"
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Exactly.
It's hard though. When iron sharpens iron, there are sparks, right?
There are sparks, and
right.
and that's why you have to have that real relationship with them.
Yeah.
Having had to have tough conversations with friends is like, I'm willing to risk losing you as a friend to try to save you from what you're doing yourself.
Trust me, I know that you are that kind of guy. That's a rare gift.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I just think of all the pain and suffering that I've had and all the people I've hurt. And if I can stop somebody else from doing that, and correct them with just some tough love, right? Tough love with complete compassion, saying, listen, you're screwing up. You're screwing up, but here's how we can make it right. And there's always a way to make it right. It's Jesus, right? So, again, I didn't mean to break off on that.
No, you're absolutely right. I think it's very important to talk to address that though, because people, it's not going to be, when you accept Christ, when you invite Jesus into your heart, you just signed up for battle 101 with the enemy, because guess whose army you're no longer marching in?
Yeah, exactly.
And they've taken note. You're a defector now, and so they want to get you back. And if you fight, they're going to fight you. So spiritual warfare is very real, and the enemy's favorite weapons against you is your past, right? Your past failures, and that you cannot be a new creation. So that's something that we all battle, including something that I've battled, ever since I began a relationship with the Lord. And you get stronger and you get better, and the key to that is community and staying in the Word and good Christian brothers and sisters.
So in my testimony, I have two dates. I have the day that I, because I was an atheist, I wasn't raised with the church. So I have the day that I rationally accepted Christianity, and then the day that I became Spirit-filled. Are those different days for you, or did it just kind of eventually, where when I am in tune with God, I know I'm in tune with God. My skin feels different. Everything feels different about me.
I think I do. I think that there was a date. You don't
have to say the date. I'm just wondering.
No. I think there was a day, the day that I said, okay, God, like I'm done. But then I was like, well, still toying with the world, right? And then probably 3 months later, when God was like, look,
it's do or die time right here.
I'm going to take it all from you. That is the voice that I heard from God. And that's actually in the book that I heard God say, stop drinking and change your ways, or I will take everything.
So when Stacy was working through that tough time, you were saying you're a changed person. You want to make amends. She's still hurting. How did you cope with that, with the rejection part of that? Because there is a little bit of rejection that comes along with that, right?
Oh yeah.
You get into a fight and they bring up the past, like the kitchen sink gets dumped on, everything but the kitchen sink gets dumped in your lap again. How did you process that? It's got to be grace, in my opinion, but I just want to hear how you handled it.
Well, I expected nothing but, I knew I didn't deserve to even be in a relationship with my wife anymore. I didn't deserve her. I didn't deserve to even live under the same roof as her. And with that mentality, I tried to fight it by giving her full accountability, by giving her, she could track my phone. She could track, I gave her passwords.
So transparency.
Full transparency. If I had a coffee appointment, with a Christian brother, or a motorcycle ride, if I ended up doing something like that, I would take pictures and send it to her so she knew who I was with and where I was at all times.
And that's the test, building the trust, right? The model done by Joseph.
The only thing that I could do, and I also served her in every way that I could.
Did you serve her prior to that? Like, I know that you were angry and I know all this stuff, but when was the last time prior that you had actually served? Like, Lauren and I are constantly in a battle where we are trying to do things for one another, right? Like I have the most amazing relationship where it's, but I'm lucky that it's reciprocal like that. Yeah. So many relationships I know it's one way, and that's where resentment comes from, right? So you come down and, your coffee cup is full of hot water, so that, something sweet like that. So when you put your coffee in, it doesn't drop in temp right away.
Wow.
Just little things like little thoughts.
Your wife does that? That's amazing. Yeah, that is amazing.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And but I am constantly trying to do things for her as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you get in this, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but when you get in this tight relationship where it's this cycle of giving.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And, and I know that I've been in bad relationships where it's take, wound, give, take, wound, give. Yeah. And then I've been in places where I've done so much damage where it was nothing but take from me at that point, and, there was no give back.
Well, I think that what was missing before was God. And so you have human and the human nature. And then if you have a relationship with God in it, then it's almost like a triangle where the closer you both get to God, the closer you get to each other.
Was Stacy raised with religion?
She was.
Okay. And was she a practicing Christian during this time?
So she had, after the loss of our firstborn son, Christian, who was born deceased, she started going to church, where we really weren't going. We were prior to that, maybe homecoming and whatever. She started going to a new
homecoming. What's homecoming?
Homecoming is I think it's a Methodist church thing where they all come back. All the children that have branched out into the world, they all come back for this one Sunday.
Okay.
And it's like they pack the house.
I was going to say Christian or Christmas or Easter.
It's kind of like that where the church, certain churches have that, and those are the days they're most full, is Easter, Christmas, and homecoming.
Okay.
But she had started going to a new church, the Point here locally in Charlottesville, and I had received invites and things like that. She had tried to get me to go. I refused. I was so angry.
You weren't there
yet. God. It's a weird thing to have believed in God as a child and then question whether He really exists.
Yeah, I don't have that experience. I was so mad that God didn't exist when I was an atheist.
Yeah.
Right. My favorite song was by a band called Slayer, who I actually carved their name into my arm at one point. And my favorite song was God Hates Us All. And, that was my fuel when I was angriest, when I was scaredest, when I was anything, I put that on and I could run through a wall. And then without trying, my most sought after track completely horrified me and repelled me. This Holy Spirit did that to me. Just like people, who give up addictions like that, and it was effortless. It was effortless to me. I had no choice. Yeah. I couldn't listen to it.
Yeah. Oh, that's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
The indwelling of the Holy Spirit will do amazing things. But the music, like Linkin Park, was one of my favorites, and the one of my favorite songs was "Nothing Really Matters."
Yeah.
Well, Linkin Park, the lead singer,
killed himself.
Killing himself because
bleak existence.
His lyrics, it's full of hopelessness, and it's so sad. But there is so much amazing Christian music out there, and it doesn't have to
particularly now. Like I used to say, Christian music sucked.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and a lot of it
didn't have a lot of choices.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot out there. But now, like I'm listening to Crowder.
Oh, yeah,
I mean. Just some great stuff, and there's some great hard stuff that I've been listening to. There's a song called "Fall Goliath" that I absolutely love. And Ken Graves turned me onto it, and it's just this amazing tune. And then I just started finding stuff out there, and then through this show, I've been able to interview rap stars and other people there who are on the right side of the culture war.
That's awesome.
Christians who are preaching the gospel, citing scripture in their music, right? Making it cool to be Christian again, making it cool to be patriotic and all that. And that's something else. I don't want to detract from your story, but
it's important to, why is the stuff on the radio station popular? It's because it's what they play.
Right.
So if you change your radio station, and change your mindset, I would challenge anyone that is listening to, if you've never tried Christian music before, take the 30-day challenge. And I know it sounds corny, but listen to Christian music exclusively.
I've got a baby step for you. Go ahead after this.
For 30 days, and I guarantee it'll change your heart. But if you're a hardcore rock guy, there are Christian bands out there, that are hardcore rock. And as a matter of fact, in the movie Break Every Chain, we got permission to use a song by Fireflight, which is a Christian rock band with a female lead vocal. They're incredible. They've been around for 20 years, and we got one of their songs in the credits.
Awesome, man. So, for those of you who don't want to do directly into the deep end of Christian, part of my journey was listen to country music. Country music for me, I started listening to a lot of it, and it was everyone was talking about Jesus was their friend. Every one of them was talking about King James Bible. Every one of them was talking about these wholesome existences and doing all this stuff, to where it really made me feel like, wait a minute, this isn't lame. These guys are talking about something totally different than the Catholic Church that I predict. And again, no, nothing against it. That just wasn't for me. And that was so huge in me in my beginning walk with the Lord, that country music reinforced that.
Wow. I never would have taken you for a country music.
I'm a massive country music.
Wow.
I mean, I listen to everything.
No kidding.
But when I'm in my backyard sitting around a fire, I want country music.
Okay.
When I'm in a good mood, I put on happy country music. I know it doesn't exist. Now, there's some great Christian music out there now too. So I'm like, now when I'm working out in the gym, I'm listening to Christian rock, right? But music has always been my accelerant, right? Whatever I'm in, it takes what I'm doing and magnifies it.
Yeah.
Depending on how good the artist is. And man, there's some really good stuff out there that people need to check out. And I typically, I play the Patriot on the intro, which is from Topher and the Marine Rapper. And then there's some other stuff. And I'm actually interviewing a Christian artist on Monday. I'm not a Christian. It's a Christian artist. And David, hold on, I got his name. This is so bad. David Bray, I want to say his name is. He's got a really good Christian song about veteran homelessness that my friend Ray Kerr is in the video, and it's really, really good. We're going to be talking to him. But I want to get back into you. So Stacy was raised in the church, and she had that to lean on. Yeah. Which I think is key, because, most Christians by default are going to be like, you have to try to work this out.
Right. That's
and instead of secular world, we're like, screw him, whatever.
Well, her secular friends did.
Yeah. Right. And, whereas everyone's like, wait a minute, is there, what can you be and what should you be? Right. So, kudos for her for doing that. But I just really wanted to drive that home, because I know a lot of people out there, they screw up, they ask for forgiveness, and they expect it to be done that moment. And they got to understand there's a healing process goes with it. Now, at some point going in the future, you can't be bringing up stuff from whatever when you're fighting about things. And the thing you either forgive or you don't.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And unless somebody is starting to go down that same path again, then you can say, whoa. That's not the deal we had.
Right.
I'm not going back there. And that's the only time, I think, once that healing period is over, that you can't drag up every sin someone's done from the past when you didn't take the trash out.
Right.
That's just not a healthy relationship.
No, it's not true forgiveness. But you're right. Like if the sin is coming back, then they don't need to be a victim again.
Right. No, exactly. Well, it's like one of my friends I was talking to, and he wronged me in a way, and he asked for forgiveness, and I forgave him. And then later on, he started doing the same thing again. And I'm like, dude, blah, blah. And he's like, I thought you forgave me for that. I'm like, I forgave you that, but you're doing it again. So no.
Yeah.
No.
You have to see behavioral and life change.
Exactly. Yeah. So Stacy goes through that healing period and then go from there. So where you guys are.
We went through a time of restoration where it was very difficult, but it needed to happen. And once God started working in our lives together, then God slowly began restoring our relationship, our marriage, and our lives. Our marriage today is stronger than it ever was before.
So you've fallen back in love, because, you can become enemies, you do this, that, whatever, and then you're reaching out, and then and then you kind of track back together. So you guys fall back in love again and take it from there.
And so now we have 3 children now. So our daughter Anna is 11, and then we have Zachariah, who was born in 2016, about a year and 3 months after we went to this full crisis mode, and he is 4.5 now. And then we have a new addition who's baby Hope, and she is now almost 10 months.
Awesome. Praise the Lord.
So three beautiful children, and we just live our lives to try to inspire others and help them, because our story involves loss. It involves infidelity, and it involves addiction. It involves just so many things that everyone faces and no one wants to talk about.
So that brings me to my next point. So you skipped ahead to the happy ending part.
Yeah. There's a lot of hard work in there.
There's
That's
a lot of hard,
all written about in the book.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But I want to talk about, when did you guys decide to put your struggles out to the world to see, right? Because that's private, but and God bless Stacy for letting you do that.
Right. Yeah. Well, right. I definitely had to have permission. So it all started when one of the pastors at the church, we were coming up on a Christmas Eve services, and they wanted to, he had been working with me and meeting with me and praying over me through all the hard stuff. And when he, after Zachariah was born, he's like, wow, it's just amazing to see what God has done. And it's not, I was along for the ride, and I worked hard too, and Stacey worked hard too, but God restores. And he said, if you're willing to share your story, like people, you could help so many people. And I was like, that's really hard to share, but he's right. Like, why doesn't someone else deserve to have the same redemption that I've had? And just to be inspired by what God can do if you surrender to him. And so we moved forward, and I talked to Stacey about it, and that's how.
Was that a quick yes or a hell no?
No, it was she had to think about it.
Okay.
She wanted to know. I think the caveat was, or the conditional thing was, we can talk about it, but we're not going to address the infidelity. So they didn't want to talk about that in the video. And so she was like, well, we can dive into it, but we're not going to reveal that. Because, that's just too painful at that point. It's too fresh. So once that aired, I guess, they showed it in the Christmas Eve services, and I think 1,500 people saw it in person, and then they put it on Facebook and all this.
I saw the video. That's the one I was talking about.
Yeah. So, and it is out there. Excuse me. You can,
with your permission, can I show it as a part of this?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure.
No problem. It's out there for anyone to see. But, so I started writing the book. I just felt a strong calling to do it. And, I didn't understand why, because I was still convinced that I was the only cop that ever felt this way, that ever struggled with addiction or depression or, post-traumatic stress. And, I felt like I was the only one that ever thought about killing myself.
Yeah, that's not true.
Well, now I know that, but I didn't know that at that time, and it's just goes to show you what the enemy will do to make you feel like you're the only one. And I felt it was garbage and no one would read it.
So, question on that. So you have siblings and your family's pretty close from what I've seen.
Yeah.
They weren't apart, like, were you just embarrassed to share with their struggle with them, like, with your family? Because I don't really have anyone that I could share.
We never talked about any of this stuff. We never, even after the death of my father, we never talked about him. It was like this taboo, forbidden subject to talk about Dad. I couldn't even when I was around my mom or my siblings, like, even as an adult, the word Dad, did not want to roll off my tongue.
Wow.
We didn't want to talk about him. We didn't know, and because it was, I don't know, it was just because it's so traumatic. And
well, so many people don't know how to process it, right? Like, so, I've screwed up so much in my life that when God blessed me with Lauren's heart, I said, I'm doing this right. And I knew that the one thing that I needed to do is the one thing I'm best at, communicating. I'm going to communicate everything. Nothing's going to be unsaid. Everything's going to be there, and we're going to develop this, we're going to communicate, because there are times when we're talking or we're arguing, we're not even arguing about the same thing. Like what she said and what I heard are totally different. Like, so, there's some skills that I've picked up along the way. Like, so when we're going stuff and I'm like, why isn't this real? Like, here is what I'm hearing you say. And she's like, I am not even saying anything close to that. Right. And I don't feel like a lot of families have those skill sets to deal with these things, and they just sweep them under the rug. Right. And just carry that on. And it just leaves everyone frayed with this big hole in their chest. Yeah.
So during my struggles, none of my family knew. No one knew. I hid it from everyone. Wow. No one knew about my alcoholism. I was very, police officers are very good at acting, at hiding things. And so I hid all of my scars from all of them. But as I moved forward with a relationship with Christ and the restoration, I saw both of my sisters get baptized within probably a year of when I got baptized. So, you might be influencing someone in your own family.
That's great. Yeah. So I want to talk about the alcoholism part. Some people have a really hard time giving it up. How hard was it for you to give up? I mean, you were talking about going into DTs and withdrawals. Mm-hmm. How hard was that part for you once Jesus got involved?
So when I heard God speak to me and say, stop drinking, or, that same day that my wife had found out about the infidelity and stuff, that was when I was like, okay, God, I surrender. And I said, please, Lord, take this from me. I prayed that God would help me with it. And after moving forward after that, like, I never really felt any withdrawals. It was very strange. It was almost like the Holy Spirit took care of it. I know that's not going to happen for everybody. Yeah. So I'm not going to say that that's always going to be realistic, but I think that the most important thing to realize is that you have to commit to it, and you say, I am not going to touch it. I am getting rid of it.
Not baby stepping, not whatever. And that's what I think AA does so well. It's like, it's cold turkey. It's nothing. My dad is a great example. Yeah. He's like, he's never like tried to say you can't have a drink or anything like that. He's like, you're the normal one. Me, he's like, I can't have one sip of beer or I'll wake up in a jail in Toledo.
Well, so the difference that, in my opinion, about Alcoholics Anonymous or AA, that's why they call it AA, because it's hard to say Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Yeah. But AA, they say you're a recovering alcoholic for the rest of your life. Yes. Well, I don't believe that. I believe that I was an alcoholic, and that I got rid of alcohol, and now I choose not to ever mess with it again. I've deleted it from my life because I'm supposed to guard my heart. And if I know that I had a problem with it for over 10 years of my life and it sucked my life dry, why would I play with the enemy?
Right. No, I get that. You're called to flee from sin.
Right.
Right. But I think you're kind of saying one and the same thing there. The difference would be is if you could drink now and not go down that dark road. Whereas an alcoholic, it's their weak spot. Even though you've been healed, you don't want to touch it. So again,
maybe it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same thing. You're not choosing to play with it because it's temptation for you. Whereas me, whether I have a beer tonight or I don't for the next year, it doesn't matter to me.
Right, and I think that maybe I just think that I don't like the label recovering alcohol.
Yeah, well, yeah, it sounds bad. Whereas
former, maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's former. I think is great, and that's something that Ken says. He doesn't put that identity on them. He says, when you were an addict, when you were an alcoholic, you did this. Now you're something new.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So, and they, he's a prime example of, he doesn't have a problem with any of this. And he does a ton of addiction work because he lost his father to it.
Wow.
Anyways. So I want to get back on track with you. And I know we're coming up on.
Talk about the movie.
Yeah. So the book, you write the book. You didn't think anyone was going to read it. It was more therapy for you.
Yeah. I've figured if nothing else that, Yeah, it was therapeutic. It definitely was. That was something that was interesting to realize, is that writing has incredibly therapeutic value.
Okay. So you get the book, you self-publish it. How's that go?
So I was looking for a traditional publishing contract. It's very difficult to obtain that when you are unknown. There's over 3,000 book titles coming out on Amazon every day. And so everyone's got a book now, and it's nothing amazing. Anyone can write one. So it was a decision of, do I keep sending my manuscript to publishers and hoping and waiting 6 months, or do I just do what I got to do to get it out there? And so I went with a publisher called Covenant Books, and it is a self-publishing. It's like a hybrid option where they are your publisher. They still help you with cover art. They still do the edit for you. They still put it out there to the distributing network so that it is available worldwide. I mean, it is available at Target.com.
Right.
And if I self-published it through Amazon or something like that, that would be where it was available only. So this gets it out to the world in a different way. And so that's who I went with. And they don't take quite as many royalties as a traditional publishing contract. I think your traditional publisher will pay you up front, and then they'll take all, but the author might make 10% of royalties.
Sure.
Whereas Covenant Books, I think they don't take any royalties at all until you make your initial investment back.
That's great.
And then they take maybe 5% after that.
Really cool, because that's something I get ghostwriters calling me every day, wanting to write books for me and all that stuff, and I'm like, I don't think anyone will get my voice right.
Yeah, sure.
My internal dialogue and my voice, and people who know me be like, that's not how Jason sounds,
right?
Especially
with you being out here on your podcast and knowing, you're definitely one of a kind.
Well,
it's a good thing.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
No, it's a good thing.
So the movie gets published, the book gets published you went with this publisher. Mm-hmm. It's out there, and you wake up and there's 1 million copies sold.
Not quite. Yeah, and we'll end things on that note.
Yeah. So now you get your Mercedes out front,
right. So I think I make about $3 per paperback. It's
okay.
The sales are. It's not a money making adventure for me. It's about helping people, providing hope for fellow first responders or anyone who has dealt with alcoholism, depression, loss, things like that. So I think that as far as how many books I've sold, it's over 5,000. I'm not sure exactly.
Great.
It's been out for about a little over 2 years now, and I think it's doing very well. It continues to sell, and average sales on Amazon are 5 to 10 copies a week. So
yeah. So have you gotten the thing that I like most about when I'm doing one of my other hats is Tried and Shield, the active shooter training, or with the podcast even that I've been doing since I've been doing so much, content, is the letters of appreciation and how it's affected someone, knowing that you changed a life. Yeah. Have you gotten any of that from especially from law enforcement officers who might have been suicidal or anything like that, where you're just rocked to tears because you're like, I just thank you, Lord, for using me.
Yeah, they all come to me behind the scenes.
Right.
They'll reach out to me on Facebook Messenger or through my website or whatever, and they'll just say, "Look, thank you. I thought I was the only one, and I'm just, thank you for sharing your story." And so many people are like, "That's my story too,"
Yeah.
And so that just affirms what God was trying to tell me. Why He had me write it is that this isn't about you. This is about everybody else.
Well, and that's a point that I make to people who listen to me is your testimony is not yours, it's God's.
Yeah.
You lived it, yes, but He wrote it.
Amen. That's
right.
Yeah.
And it's His, and it was created for one reason, to glorify God and to bring people to Him, right?
Yeah.
Well, because every one of us has something we have to share, and it speaks to thousands, if not tens of thousands of people who are going through the same exact thing that you did, and they want to know there's a way out, and you have a way out for them. And God gave it to you, and now you got to share it with them.
Yeah, a permanent way out.
Right? It's not yours to hoard.
Yeah.
It's not yours to secret away. It's yours to share, to help the next guy up and the next gal up and the next and create disciples. My whole thing now is I am all about creating, mentoring and creating other mentors.
Yeah.
We have to be force multipliers. That's the only way we save this country. And it's the only way to effectively, I think, make a Christian disciple that can weather the world. Right. And, and I hope that we can, have a profound effect on people with our ministry of, how to take back our families. So we've just, for so long, for 70 years, we've been under a siege with secular society coming after us and saying, hey, listen, give us your kids, we'll educate them in school. And then it was your coach, right. And then it was this, and it was everyone else except for the father, right? And you need that father role so bad, or even a strong mother. It can be a strong mother, but having that mentorship start in the family, and really be a part of that until they can stand on their own. I think that's a lost art form.
The biggest responsibility we have is the discipleship and the leadership of our children and our family, our wives, as Christian men. And it all starts with, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church.
Yeah.
Something I certainly wasn't doing in my former life.
Yeah. Well, and that's what Lauren and I try to do, is we try to model a healthy Christian relationship.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people make it more difficult than it is. It's just about serving one another, so your book goes out there, it's getting some traction. How in God's green earth did you get it to be a movie?
Well, I was trying to make it happen on my own. And, we kind of talked about this before the show, where sometimes we try to do our own thing and then we can take the credit for it. And then when it doesn't work out, we have to surrender it to God. And that's when things start taking off.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened with this. I was trying to make it my own thing. I even went to an event where David A.R. White was, and I gave him a copy of that, of the book. David A.R. White is the co-founder of Pureflix. He's been in several movies, including the producing of God's Not Dead, which is, everybody knows that in the Christian world. But he's got several other good movies as well. And so I gave him a copy of the book. I took a picture with him. I said, hey, maybe this is it, right?
Yep.
And, I even tried to follow up with him, and it just wasn't going anywhere. And I tried reaching out to other Sony Affirm Films and other large, conglomerates, and saying like, hey, you got to get this on your radar. And it wasn't going anywhere. And I finally accepted that God, was going to have to be involved. And so we started to pray, like, God, if you want to use this in this way, then you need to do it, because we don't know what else to do. And so a friend of mine who, it's amazing how God uses his people. So a good Christian brother of mine who I grew up with, family friend since childhood, his name is Will Stoff. He did the audiobook, available on Audible and
you didn't read
Apple
your
books.
Own book?
No, I did not.
Oh, man.
Although I probably could have, I just didn't know that it would be appropriate for me to do my wife's voice saying things like, I hate you,
Oh, yeah. I get that.
Like there are parts of the book I would have been fine, but, there's a reason for this. So Will Stoff does my audiobook. He's got 30 years in radio. He's got an amazing voice actor. One of his skills is that he does a great Trump impersonation. And so he'll go on Fiverr and things like that. People will hire him to do their car commercial ads in Trump's voice. And so that reputation got the attention of a film company called JC Films. JC Films reached out to Will Stoff to do this movie called Being Trump. You can probably find it on Amazon.
Yep.
It's a comedy spoof. It's very low budget. Don't have great expectations, but it's funny. I mean, but so they had Will Stoff play this Trump impersonator in this Being Trump movie. And that's how he formed a relationship with JC Films and Jason Campbell, the owner. and he reached out to me. He said, "Hey, like this guy does Christian movies. He's a Liberty guy. Like all the pieces are there. Like, give me a copy of your book and I'll put it in his hands. We'll see what happens." So the rest is history. And so Will Stoff gave him a copy of the book, and that's how the movie gave birth, I guess.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you, you showed me today a very detailed, long trailer, and
2 minutes.
It was very in depth, and
it was.
It wasn't like 30 seconds, and I'm about to say something about the movie, meaning that it showed a lot of heart. I mean, I got choked up just watching it. Just watching it. So, I am brutal on Christian films. I think most of them are terrible.
Yeah.
I watch them and with a kind heart, and I'm very forgiving because I know they're trying to do something.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do that. They believe in the message, right?
Yeah.
So they'll forgive the bad acting, the bad audio.
Yeah, just all the things that go into it. And like I said, The Passion for Christ was one that was done by Mel Gibson that was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. The Chosen is another one that I believe was done amazingly. It continues to be amazing. And then the quality of the trailer that you showed me, I couldn't tell that was a Christian movie. If you could remove that part of it, meaning that there was no way I'd be like, that's just a Hollywood movie and it's good. Yeah. It's a drama.
Yeah.
Right. I'd look at it and say, that's a drama and it's great. And it just happens to be an amazing Christian movie with a great story.
Yeah.
It's a Christian movie through and through, but it was not weak sauce like so many of the other ones are out there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was really inspiring. I can't wait to see it. It's totally, I know it's going to crush it, and I know it's going to make a huge impact on people.
It's going to glorify God and help so many people. As a matter of fact, we have had 2 very small premieres for the film. We'll have a third one coming up in Charlottesville in July, but and then the movie should be released late summer, I'm thinking.
All right.
Speaking life into that, but that's the plan as far as being available on Blu-ray, DVD, and Amazon and things like that.
I hope I get invited to the premiere in Charlottesville, just saying.
I think you will, but we had a very small premiere in Tampa, Florida. It was for the director, Tim Searfoss. It was like friends and family. We rented a small theater, and it was after this premiere, one of the young ladies who went home, repented, and got baptized and all this just
awesome.
After seeing the movie.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Praise the Lord.
So that's just the very beginning, of life change, hopefully that will happen as this movie releases.
Well, what is your favorite Bible verse to put you on the spot?
Oh man, I have so many. That's a hard one. So I think that I really like Romans 13:12. It's the Romans 13:12 it says, because I don't have it committed to complete memory, but I know the last part of it. So it basically says like the night is almost over, the day is almost here. Mm-hmm. So put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light.
Awesome. Well, I want to say that this coffee that you brought, this Blue Line Roasting Company, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I just wanted to so Blue Line Roasting is a coffee company that is law enforcement owned and operated, and they supported the fundraising for the film. And they have. What do you think of the coffee?
I thought it was great. It's dark. It's a dark blend. It was bold.
Yes.
And it definitely has some caffeine because I crave caffeine, and that has been good to go.
They have tons of different roasts, and it's just really good coffee. So if you're looking for a law enforcement company and good coffee to support, bluelineroasting.com. So
do you have like a discount code or anything?
Oh yeah, actually I do. I totally forgot about that. It's Break Every Chain 10. That'll get you 10% off. But they also do subscriptions and stuff like that. But bluelineroasting.com, code Break Every Chain 10 for 10% off. All
right. And what's next for you?
So right now we're working on the release of the film, and God is using me in many different ways to reach law enforcement officers. I'm working on some virtual training right now with Training Response Network, where we'll be nationwide reaching officers with a trauma class. I also teach a class at our local police academy for veteran cops on trauma, mental wellness, and suicide prevention. It's actually a career credit approved, so that I teach that a few times a year, and just waiting for the next things that God's going to do. I mean,
awesome, man. Well, brother, it's been so good to have you here. I'm so proud of you and what you're doing in God's name, and the fact that you're continuing to serve over there, serve him and so many. That's all good. Don't worry about it.
So can we real quick talk about ways to follow for the film and stuff?
Sure.
So if you on Facebook, Break Every Chain Book, you'll find it pretty easily. Break Every Chain Book on Facebook, Break Every Chain Movie on Instagram.
Okay.
And if you just follow those pages, then you can also go to breakeverychainbook.com for all the links to that stuff. And that's going to give you how to get the book and also information on when the film will officially be releasing.
Awesome. And of course, we'll be following that, and we'll give you a heads up when it's going. And I will tell you after I see it in July, if I get an invite to the premiere, what I thought of it. So hopefully it's going to live up to that trailer, because that trailer has set expectations, boy.
It will.
So, all right, that's all we got for you. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you for listening to The Hope Report. If you were blessed by this episode, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channels.